All right, welcome into another episode of Blockchain Basement. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Bitcoin going to zero right now. It's dumping like we have never seen. Lizard people making more money than Nike just by sitting on their greenbacks. And the CPI numbers as well. All this and more on today's Blockchain Basement. Bum, 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 bum. You ready for this? I'm ready. Welcome.
If you're gonna screw me, at least pull my hair.
Hell yeah. What you got?
They could start chopping off fingers. They're like, give me your seed phrase, but I don't know it.
Out to give the numbers out. And I was like, no, hang up the phone right now.
Or like when it dropped in 2020, was it like exciting?
400,000 to 600,000. The generational signals are now.
Level. So I don't even know if we're gonna get back below there. But if we do, that's kind of where we. Chris?
Welcome back into Blockchain Basement. During that intro, they were all ice cream shaming me, except for Ray. He came to my defense because who eats only half a pint of ice cream? Only crazy people. Nobody puts that back in just for somebody else to take it out later and see it's only half and be disappointed. Like,
Gross.
that's just rude.
That's all crispy on the sides.
All right, so anyway, welcome into the show. It's going to be fun. We thought it was going to be a great show with the price being up this morning. Now, right before we went live, the price is absolutely dumping. Went from well over 28. It was at 20. Now it's at 26.9 and dropping even more. But before we get into the prices, we have to get into who we have in the studio with us today. We've got the blue shirt duo.
That's right.
We've got the one and only Ray, strongman from the gym. We've got the Nick Taters, crypto sunglasses.
Ray's my enforcer.
Yeah, exactly. Ray brings, Nick lays down the law. Ray makes sure you're following it. The lovely Ali Lee, as always, of course. And he's back. The Biscuit Jesus. I was going to give you a drum roll. There he is, looking lovely and dashing. Look at those eyelashes flash. He's got his new merch on, that jacket. Class of 93. You seem a little older than that, BJ, but hey.
Wow.
Nobody's counting.
It's the year Magic started.
I see.
Really?
I see.
Yep.
That makes more sense.
Well, there's a Black Lotus.
Magic is 30 years old.
Wow.
There you go.
When you say it like that.
Makes you feel real old, doesn't it? Wow.
does.
Okay. And of course, all of you guys, Ryan San Miguel, Laurel Rodriguez, Dwight Balagale, Manawak, Rand San Miguel, TJ's Chicken Salad. It's not chicken salad today. We got salmon. So I saw somebody say, TJ with the fancy lunch, bear. We say we got Manawak, R.A. Daniel. I've always seen the tweets from Manawak, Razma Taz, The Real Crypto, Stevo, Poon 78 Div, Crimson Caravan Company, The Real Crypto, Stevo, Crypto Tectonic, Rug Game, White Rabbit, Bobby Dials. Ray, is your username just Ray if in the chat generally?
It is. Well, Ray from the gym.
It does say Ray from the gym. There you go. So you guys, you'll see him in the chat, Ray from the gym. So all right, pull this up real quick. Let's look at what just happened in the last few minutes. Oh, hold on. Gotta hide myself. There you go. Where? That's. Oh, I'm really messing it up.
Wow.
Sorry, guys. Freaking CoinMarketCap, and there we go. There you go. So we went all the way from 28.2 to 26.9, and it seems like it's finding some support there. Feels like we're going all the way to zero right now. So
Is that a one day dump?
that was this is a
like
1 day,
minute.
but it's really like 1 hour. I would have pulled it up. I pulled it up on Frank's chart, but man, there's so much TA on there. Like blah, can't see anything.
Frankie.
Let's go to the 1 hour though, and I know you got to. I didn't want to clear. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't want to clear all this stuff off. But there you go. There's a
Frank's
dump.
over here trying to be Alex Gray with this.
I know. So I just do it. Keep it simple. Look, there you go. There's a dump. Not gonna shout out Joe Ether in the chat. Yes, I am. Yeah, it's like a 15-minute candle. So yeah, literally just dumped. It pumped. This pump here this morning came off of the CPI numbers. So we were holding 27, and we talked earlier in the week that this 27 number was key, and it seemed to be finding holding on, just barely hanging on to these things. And it was like, okay, maybe CPI if it will help it, not have this dump, because it was seeming like it was wanting and ready to dump. CPI numbers come out favorably. I mean, here's kind of a prediction. I had TED Talks Macro, kind of his game plan for CPI. If it was above 5.5, he said we're going to be pulling back to 25,000, low probability, and it was 5.3 to 5.5. So he's kind of, here's breakdowns of what he thought was going to happen. Pull back at 26.5. If it was around 5, we could, get to 28.5. If it was coming in low, like, beating expectations substantially, would pump up to 29. It came in even lower. So that was kind of his breakdown. It did come in basically what was expected. Headline CPI 4.9, which I imagine that's what he was referring to here was the headline, or I don't know if he said headline or core, but, and then core 5.5, which was exactly what was estimated. So those numbers came in as expected, prices pumped up, and now we're seeing a pullback real quick, really harsh right now. So we'll have to look into it, see if we can see what's causing that, because it seemed fairly positive. I see how would you say that? Dario Alkin. I hope we go to 25K.
DeRoyal
DeRoyalkin.
He's a Royal Ken.
I get it. Royalkin. I get it.
Royal Ken.
Not to be confused.
Yeah,
with
I think Coors
Hadouken.
Lightyear has it right on the nut. It's the Fed sold some BTC.
You think so? So this is from like the DOJ, basically their holdings there.
Yeah, I mean this have got 40K Bitcoin to get rid of this year. Like, oh, we're at 28K. Let's just go ahead and dump a couple CPI numbers.
Whale and have motivation.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: Do you think they have any motivation or long-term play in affecting the price, or they're just trying to unload it when they feel like there's positive liquidity? Like, you think they're saying like, oh, like, are they playing the game of trying to manipulate the price to the downside to attack Bitcoin, or are they just like, look, we've got this Bitcoin, we need it in dollars, sell a chunk?
I always try not to fall into the trap of ascribing a way higher level of intelligence on the government than they actually have. I mean, especially when it comes to something like crypto. I mean, they're still using 3.5-inch floppies. Yeah. They're still using tape-to-tape drives.
Right. Anything tech related. Yeah.
Yeah. The idea that someone's back there is like, I know, I'm going to do some 4D chess on the crypto market. I mean, maybe.
Yeah,
but,
not
I
happening.
mean, all evidence to the contrary so far, I find that unlikely.
Yeah, you said something on a different show, Nick, that really stuck with me, where you said the U.S. government is what you said it was like 80% Veep, 20% House of Cards.
Yeah.
Where it's much more, which I haven't really seen Veep. I have seen House of Cards, but I understand the sentiment there, where it's a lot more comical than maniacal, I guess you could say. Let's see who says. Rug Gang says, I think it's more like, hey, intern, did you sell that Bitcoin yet? He was like, oh no, quick, dump it all. Put in a sell order. So I don't know. We'll have to check on, keep an eye on that as the show goes on. It's already recovering back up to 27.2. So in my mind, as long as we hold, above those kind of 27 and change numbers, really 27.2. Let me look at a kind of a longer. I don't know why they started I don't like this bar over here they started doing on CoinMarketCap. Is that only when you're collapsed in? Like, does this? This whole, like, all of this new setup over here is kind of annoying.
It is annoying. I like the charts now on Lunar Crush better. It's just visually far more appealing.
Yeah, and it's different on a different computer. On Lunar Crush?
Lunar Crush. You may have to log in and do some hijinks, but moving forward.
Let's just go to CoinGecko for a minute.
Go to good old the Craigslist of listings.
Boom, that just looks so terrible.
Wow,
really does.
Yeah, that's a whale dump.
Yeah.
That is.
That happened within 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, definitely. It happened within 15 minutes. So if you look at like these bottoms right here, these 27 threes, 27 twos. I mean, I'm sure there's an exact number. Like, here's basically 27 on the nose. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are looking at 27 and 27 twos specifically, but I feel like we're safe within that range. If you get below, if you lose 27 though, then you drop all the way back down to 25 real fast. So it's interesting to me. Obviously, we're holding on to it right now. These are the bulls trying to defend this 27,000 level because otherwise we are back at 25, which again isn't the end of the world. You keep zooming out. I mean, that's what's so interesting. You got to get all the way to the max to see, this. God, we're at such a good spot right now. I can't wait for the next year. So anyway, I wouldn't freak out too much watching the price 27. It's a decent pullback. I know a lot of you guys are hoping for a pullback more to 25, something like that. It is. I feel like it's right part of the cycle for a bit of a pullback. So that could have been it. That could have been the run up that we just experienced, kind of up to 30, 34. But let's talk a little bit more about CPI. You had this tweet, Nick. CPI print is total fugazi. Energy price pullback threw the numbers off. Everything else is still inflating. Middle class Americans continue to get squeezed. So we know, the CPI numbers, consumer price index, there's a lot of variation in there. There's a lot of different ways to manipulate the numbers. So this chart here says 12-month percentage change consumer price index selected categories April 2023, not seasonably adjusted. So we got red, all items, food, energy. So you're basically saying all of the pullback is coming in this energy category, which is basically has more to do with the fact that it's not winter.
As if there's some type of breakthrough has been made or that we've broken a trend. We have not broken a trend. They should really there should be another category because there's the core CPI, which is not food and energy, and there's all items. But there should be a food and not energy, or there should be all items food and not energy. That should be the one that we're looking at, because energy is it's a very volatile commodity. Engaging inflation off of that is, like there's no lead in that pencil. It's just you're not going to understand the full scope of what is affecting everyday Americans. And like it's kind of a meme now. When I was talking about Gen Zers and millennials Grubhubbing a $50 burrito. Like that's what it's like now. You cannot go to the grocery store and not spend $75 buying free range eggs, and those are $1 a piece. That's how I live my life. But I also, don't spend money on dumb stuff. So
I think part of it's typified. I'll try not to recommend too many books. This is one I recommend to anybody. It was written in the 1950s, How to Lie with Statistics.
Oh, yeah.
And I know it was mandatory.
Is that Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics?
Well, no, that was original. I think that was originally a Samuel Clemens quote.
Okay.
But it was mandatory reading, I remember, at Intro to Psych at Yale University. And it was like, and I think it's an empowering tool for everyone because of how really the narrative and so much of our outlook is framed, or at least attempted to be framed, by whatever label you want to put it, the powers that be. If you were analyzing CPI by the same metrics we used in the 1980s, in the early 1980s, when everyone's supposed the patron saint of Paul Volcker was in charge of things, it would be realistically, 25%. Unemployment would have been completely different over the past 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
But people don't see past whatever Yahoo headline, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And they're not thinking nearly as critically as you are, and as I think we would hope and need them to be.
Yeah. And if you dig into I will say none of the corporate media digs into these numbers. They just come up with inflation is up, but not as up as we thought it was going to be. And that's the headline, where you get real OGs like Genevieve Frostechter, myself, and Caleb Franzen digging, like actually looking at the freaking HTML report that they
doing
give
actual
you.
Journalism.
Yeah.
Doing actual research.
And I wouldn't even call myself a journalism. I'm just a dictator.
You're doing the function. Well, in the stuff that you guys did with FTX.
Have a giant asterisk in a report that says, hey, there's a big outlier, something dumped a lot, which the 22% was the cost of your gas.
Any likes helps get this message out there. We're going to share. Nick just mentioned Caleb Franzen. We're going to get into that a little bit. And then Ray touched on the media, and that we're going to touch on a little bit further into the show too, with the big news of Tucker Carlson coming to Twitter. A little discussion there on free media, independent media versus the machine that we experience today. But yeah, I do think it's very interesting with a lot of these CPI numbers, a lot of this stuff. And if you want to go back to Twitch, that's fine. But if you want to just hang out on YouTube and watch it, great. It's they're saying Twitch is unstable today. So yeah,
they're both garbage.
All the Twitch people, if you could go to YouTube, we'll do the rest of the show. To your point about, despite the ongoing acceleration in shelter, 33% of the CPI. Now that this decelerated, my expectation is to see more cooling in both shelter and CPI inflation. Disinflation is only going to become more powerful now. So I do think we are starting, and let's see what the shelter data was just published on Fred, showing a formal deceleration in year-over-year shelter inflation. I've been predicting that it would peak in March to June for 6 months. So this is amazing to see. It's a brief decline, but decline nonetheless. A win is a win.
God, look at that chart.
Yeah, I mean it's still insane. Like you said, it's a brief decline. Like what he's talking about is this right here.
They can't see that.
We can't even see. I got to pull this in. I got you. Hold on.
Okay.
You're finally starting to see the beginning of the end of that inflation or the inflation on the shelter. So it was interesting that he's pointing that out, and we are seeing it in specific categories it does start to reflect on in other areas. So I do think we are starting to see, which is why the Fed is going to end up holding here, and most likely. Yeah, I guess this desktop capture's off because I'm not on that screen anymore.
Well, that's struggling too. That sort of goes back to how to lie with statistics. Which part of that graph is someone actually showing to try to make a point? If someone's trying to show, hey, it dropped incredibly, they would only show the last 0.1% of that, where you really just see the crest and then going down. Whereas we zoom farther back, and it's like, yeah, that's crazy. That's almost statistically irrelevant compared to the climb up that we had.
Everybody in the chat's yelling at BJ. So look, it worked no problem while BJ was gone. Then at least we saved all the problems for when BJ got back.
Hell yeah.
And we did look up. I did check whale alert just to see 50 million USDT transferred from Tether Treasury to Kraken. So I don't know if this is somebody just unloading an insane amount of Tether right now on Kraken, but that was about the time that we saw that dump. So if somebody dumped 50 million, we'd probably feel it. So. All right, so this is something I wanted to touch on more financial applications, cryptocurrency as a store of value, speculation, and just other kind of random categories. So I thought this was pretty interesting. It's pretty high percentage. I thought 32%. So when you think about a family office, this is your doctor's office, maybe a chiropractic office, eye doctor, anything, just small family business, mid-size. You're not talking corporations. You're talking, small businesses. 32% holding digital assets on their balance sheet, I thought was very high and pretty bullish all in all. And I can actually speak to this on an individual level. I know the eye doctor that my sister works at, the owner of that, Huffman Eye Care. I think he watches the show, Pete Huffman. Shout out to him. He's big crypto guy. I don't know tech, and I do know he holds crypto. He's been a big advocate for educating his employees on it, trying to help them get involved. And I'm not sure, I'd be interested to ask him if he holds it on his actual business balance sheet. If I had to guess, it's probably he holds it all personally. But the fact that 32% of family offices are now investing in it, and I don't know how they classify, like if they just ask, like, do you invest in digital assets?
So I think family offices are, that encompasses, I believe a majority of what people would consider a family office are investment firms that are not allowed to do high frequency trading like hedge funds, but they still manage portfolios.
So like small mom and pop management companies.
Like CPA firms would be considered a family office if they do financial planning. But then you can also have guys like, I believe Bernie Madoff ran his operation through a quote unquote family office.
Yes.
They have less regulation, but they're also not allowed to access bigger portions of capital.
So that's a term I hadn't heard before. So is that not then individual small businesses? It's more on the investment side?
I don't know about that part.
No, I think you're right. I think reading through it, because it says there's only, because I read it, I assume small businesses as well, family, but they're talking about overall 166 home offices participated in the survey, 95 of which were based in the US, 34 in Europe, some in the Middle East. So it does sound like they're talking about, and it does make more sense that Goldman Sachs would be surveying family investment offices versus just 100 small businesses.
Yep.
So that does make more sense that these are investment companies, but it is interesting showing the trend of the smaller businesses, which again, like you said, have less regulation, have less disclosures, can take more risk. I know you guys covered yesterday on Around the Blockchain. PayPal had $1 billion of Bitcoin on their balance sheet that just came out.
Wow.
In a recent filing. Now, obviously, PayPal
so held by them and not their
held by
their
PayPal
users?
the business. Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, of course, that might be a business decision. Like if we're going to be facilitating these type of payments, we need to hold a certain amount on our balance sheet, for operational purposes and that sort of thing. And I do think
is that part of maybe what they had to do for liquidity? Because that was a big deal supposedly, like about a year and a half ago when they allowed people to use PayPal to do Bitcoin, ETH, and I think Litecoin. Those are three.
That's what I'm saying. There could be a business reason. It's not just a pure investment, but it also does act as like, hey, we've got $10 billion worth of cash. We're going to put $1 billion in Bitcoin because now we're offering a Bitcoin money changing service, and we want to have this liquidity, and it works in our favor. So. And I think we're going to start to see that more and more. That's why we saw Tesla do it. That's why we saw Apple do it. I think as more of these companies, and especially if they're sitting on tons of cash, that's why we've seen sovereign nations do it. So it's not surprising to see family offices or small investment portfolios doing it, whether it, like, again, the reasons citing for belief in the technology, diversification of the portfolio, just general speculation. We're going to see that flow into more and more and more areas of life, like we already are. And the main thing slowing it down up until this point has been regulation, especially here in the United States. We're going to talk about that yesterday. Everybody seems like everybody and their mom's going to UAE, whether it's Coinbase or anybody else. So, I just thought it was interesting that many families, we're seeing
32% of anything.
A strong trend, towards digital assets. It's shouldn't be surprising to us. This is the world we eat, sleep, we breathe, live this stuff all the time. We see the trend coming. And this is another one where it's like you see stuff like this guy Simple Bitcoin posted about it. And this is some of the stuff I like to just keep it really simple. This is kind of like another way to look at the Newpol or the stock to flow or a lot of these other things. But if you look at these cycles, and I think we did early on the show, we kind of did the 4 phases, whether it's accumulation, markup, markdown, and true bear market. Like that's the full phases of the market. This kind of breaks it down too, where you've got a full bear market, you've got this middle section where it's accumulation, and then it's just straight bull time, and then 2022 all bear. 2023, you're in, we're in kind of this sideways chop. We're in this accumulation zone. It says you're here. I'd say we're probably more at the beginning of this. It's pretty relative. This is probably the 2024 halving. Right in this range here. So it's all relative where this arrow is. So if we're here, say you give it another year, you get the halving, and then and this is all adjusted obviously to what is it, logarithmic. So this is estimating it going all the way up to 300K, which right now sounds absolutely insane after what we went through in 21 and 22. You say Bitcoin to 100K and people think you're crazy. Okay. I've said I think we're going over 200 in this next cycle. I think it's going to be the end of diminishing returns. And you can see obviously this here isn't as nearly the come up as these first two. We're not on there, but you're good. Yeah, this cycle here is the one we just went through. This run up wasn't nearly as dramatic, and really, I guess they're calling the top here November, the end of that cycle. That's why this seems like they're a little ahead of the schedule for me, because really we went back and double topped, and they're still putting that in the bear market, but we'd call the bear from here to here, and then runs up. But I just thought it was interesting chart, looking to 300K, getting it to the path to $1 million by 2030, which a lot of people have had their eye on for quite some time. Let me ask you this, Nick, BJ, Ray, like, do you still feel like 300K Bitcoin is possible, or do you think it tops out like in the next 5 years or so? Nick,
me. Yes. In the next 5 years.
Boom.
Hey, we fixed it. Look at that.
Oh, I've been doing some things over here.
I heard the keyboard and the mouse. The heavy BJ breathing. Amazing what he can do with that mouth. Anyways, in the next 5 years, look, they're just pulling the rubber band back right now. So, just before we went live, if they start going on full bore QE and we start getting interest rates pulled back and there's a war happening, holy smokes. You're talking about liquidity going around crazy. 300K Bitcoin. Will it be worth as much as it would have been if it was at 300K Bitcoin previously? No, but the dollar amount will look really nice. So
I like that.
I like to measure things. I want to get to a world to where we're measuring things in Satoshis. Like, can you buy a Hyundai Elantra for Satoshis? Because that's the world I want to live in. I don't care how many dollars it costs. I want to know how many Satoshis of things cost. We need, I think there might be, but we need to start popularizing whatever the phrase is for 0.1. What is it for not a Satoshi, that's 1/1,000,000th of a Bitcoin. We need one for 1/10 of a Bitcoin. Actually, it's 1/100,000,000th of a Bitcoin.
TJ?
Yes.
No, we can start now.
Like a bit, like it'd be like,
Dude, send me a teach,
because it's a lot more likely we're going to be saying things in 0.1 of a Bitcoin than 1/100th, or 100 millionth or whatever of a Bitcoin.
Isn't sort of getting that idea to just 1 Bitcoin eques 1 Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's the concept, but obviously, you're going to need, as that number runs up, what is a tank of gas in Bitcoin, and that's why Nick's saying, it's 5,000 Satoshis or 50,000 Satoshis or whatever, and it's like we need to get it somewhere between 50,000 Satoshis for $50 and Bitcoin for 30,000.
I thought a Satoshi was the smallest measurement.
It is. It's 1/1,000,000th, 1/100th of a millionth, Bitcoin basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Bitcoin hits 300K next bull
run.
That's
why we have Litecoin, bro.
What will ETH hit? I don't know. Probably like 15, 20K. If Bitcoin's
wait for what?
Somebody was asking what ETH would be at if Bitcoin's at 300K.
Oh yeah,
20K.
25K.
TJ, if I can ask you, you and Ben had talked, and maybe I've just missed it previously, about deflation and how there had to be a really swing of the pendulum and going to, and I don't think I've heard you guys talk about it as much recently, because I'm predicating my idea that, yeah, we definitely hit 300,000 because inflation continues or a general devaluation of the American dollar. What are your thoughts on that then? Do you see the opposite? I mean, we're not going to go Weimar, we're going to go the other way.
When we were talking about the deflation, or it really wasn't deflation as much as is tightening of the dollar supply. That's what we've experienced in this last 2022, where the dollar got stronger compared to a lot of other assets. Assets fell and the dollar stayed, or the dollar went up and assets went down, however you want to look at it. But assets got stronger over the last year as they raised the rates and the tightening, the monetary policy got a lot tighter. That's what affected all these assets. Now I think there's a lot more room for assets to go up, because they're not going to be able to maintain the tightness of this policy for very long. Like realistically, they made the right choices. If they hold the rates where they're at, for 3 years, we could maybe get at, there'd be a lot of pain. A lot more banks would be going under. Unemployment would be going crazy. People would be screaming in the streets as far as like yelling at the government and the regulators to fix this problem. For the next 3 or 4 years, we'd be experiencing that, but it would be painful, but it would be fixed. What's going to happen instead is, rather than letting that play out, they're going to reverse course on the tightening that they've been doing in this past year, probably early next year, right as the pain starts to come, right as unemployment really starts to get up there and people really start to feel the effects of everything we've been doing for the past 10 years, really. And that's when they get back on the gas to ease all the pain and relieve all the tensions. And that's when you start to see assets, whether it be, especially hard assets like gold and real estate and Bitcoin, really start to take off. And then high risk assets like altcoins and anything else speculative all starts taking off when they're back on the printer, because you must now outpace inflation. If you're a business, you have to be high growth. If you're a company, you have to be high, margin. There really isn't space for slow, methodical, healthy businesses that grow 2 to 10% every single year. If you're not growing 20, 30, 40, 50%, they're not going to send money your way. And it just it's a cycle that feeds itself based on
the debt economy.
Yeah, it's the debt economy, the Mandrake effect, the closest to the printer wins, that whole concept of, be as close to the center of the circle of the money supply as possible, and you will thrive. And the further out you get, the harder it is to survive.
That's why I'm thrilled I get to ask a question like that to be here, because I had misinterpreted, because I was like, boy, they're talking about, really, you're going to reverse the flow of mighty rivers at that point, and we're going to have deflation rather than inflation, whereas the dollar is going to be worth so much more and things. I was like, boy, I just don't see that happening. So that's a much more effective mindset.
There you go.
And it just got accelerated like hardcore is everyone's entitlements. All of these pension funds, all of these, even Social Security. Like we've known for a while that Social Security is insolvent, and no one's going to do anything because that would mean short-term pain, and no one's going to take that on the chin. But once people start getting their pension checks and they're not able to make the ends meet that they were promised for years and decades, the government is going to be on its back foot, because they're going to have obligations that, like they could be sued. The government could be sued by these people, all these pensioners, even local governments. And they're going to be in a terrible, terrible position, because they're going to owe people money. And they're going to have to up the checks, and they're not going to be able to do that. And if you want to look and see how the government reacts to being pinned in a corner when it comes to money, it doesn't happen very often, but it did happen about 100 years ago, actually it was 90 years ago.
1934?
Okay? No. Look up and get familiar with the bonus march. If you don't know what the bonus march is, that is the prime example of what happens when the United States government is on its back foot and owes money, and people are demanding that they pay. The government said no. Okay? The bonus march was when a whole bunch of veterans from World War I were promised their bonuses at the end of the war. When they all declared VE Day or whatever it is, the end of the war, they were promised a bonus. They came home. They were living in poverty. Tens of thousands of veterans living in poverty. They went to Washington. They demanded that they get their checks, because the Washington kept on doing IOUs, because they all knew that the Great Depression was coming. They all kept on doing IOUs. Guess what do you know what the government did to these tens of thousands of...
Memory serves. They
MK
opened
Ultra?
up machine guns. And
yes.
Veterans come
Your homeboy Douglas MacArthur rode out there with a bunch of tanks and ran them all over.
Yeah, on July 28, 1932, U.S. government attacked World War I veterans with tanks, bayonets, and tear gas under the leadership of textbook heroes Douglas MacArthur, like you just mentioned, George Patton, and Dwight D. Eisenhower.
All the World War II Lions were out there crushing veterans underfoot.
The World War I vets were part of a bonus army who came to Washington, D.C. to make a demand for their promised wartime bonus.
I love how I said MK Ultra as a joke, and then it's like, no, they ran them over.
They ran them with bayonets and flamethrowers
Acid
and
would have
grenades.
been fun.
Yeah, they slaughtered them. They slaughtered them.
Well, but to your point, any government that tries to make the responsible decision now, even if it's a band-aid and not enough, look at Macron over in France.
Yep.
So we just made Tiananmen Square look like happy time.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's and I mean, there's another thing they do when they're backed into a corner when it comes to money too, and it's print more. And so those are the two options they have. They either print it or they go to war over it, and that's time and time again, whether it's going to war with our own people or other nations. Those are the two options they have. Those are the two tools they either use, and they'll use them differently for different reasons. I did see, where'd it go? Somebody said Sofa King Corny. Oh, Sofa King Corny used to be Sofa King Cryptic. Said I vote for calling it a Sentoshi. I like that. That's a pretty good one. 100. That's pretty good. Okay, so I agree with this, Fabian. Overall, just summing up everything we just talked about overall when it comes to the crypto market, from a fundamental perspective, I see the total market cap of crypto as severely undervalued, which would be that 1 trillion, total market cap approximately. But 98% of the tokens in circulation severely overvalued.
What?
That will converge one day. And I agree with that. I mean, most of what we're doing is speculating on the crypto market, and like he's saying, the entire market is way undervalued. Like the entire crypto market should, if it's $1 trillion market right now, maybe it should be more like a $3 to $5 trillion market cap, the whole market cap. That being said, a lot of the tokens out there, whether it's, Shiba or Pepe or, Safe Moon or your favorite, I don't know, maybe
Is it pronounced PP?
Depends on the type of person that you are. Some people say a PP, some people say a Pepe, and
I heard
we're not here to kink shame.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I heard
it tells us a lot about you.
Kink shaming
is
R.
Kelly
kink.
was the founder of PP.
Of course he was.
That's why we're getting all the yellow coins.
Okay.
Oh God.
No.
Wait,
I've been gone for a week. I've been saving this.
Are you talking about golden shower coin?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, dude, I'm in.
Let's go. Moonbag, baby. I'm going to do an ERC20 right now.
Now let's
smash the likes for. Never mind. For Pepe coin, I
smash
guess.
the likes for
I
our.
was gonna say smash the likes for golden showers. I just couldn't get it.
And you did it. You did it anyways.
I did it anyway. All right, so moving on, we're gonna switch gears a little bit.
Sorry, TJ's mom.
Yeah. Well, speaking of mom, Wendy-O, everybody's favorite crypto mom,
Hey.
been here before. Unusual Whales shared nearly half of U.S. voters support banning TikTok per the Wall Street Journal. So she said, okay, nearly half the U.S. voters apparently support censorship. I agree with this take on this. Like if you're for banning apps, you're for censorship more or less. I mean, what do you guys think? Yes or no?
I think it's far worse than that. I mean, especially the polls taken of university students, God help us, is supporting the idea of not only rejecting speech with which they disagree, but I think even violently suppressing it was like 37% was considered admissible and perfectly justifiable.
It's very alarming.
Yeah,
it's terrifying.
Well, it's funny when you censor genetics, people are a lot more pliable with you censoring everything else.
Oh,
hey,
BJ.
Hey, it's almost like it's a
master
plan. Keep them all under our control, under our clutches.
And that night, BJ died.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, censorship
Seems like
is
a
a real
solution.
It's a real problem. It's something where, especially in Western culture, it's really bad in Europe, and and then it's definitely bleeding into the United States, Australia, a lot of those other places. Obviously, anything in what they would consider Western influence control and Eastern. I mean, censorship obviously huge in a lot of Eastern cultures as well. Whether you're talking about media or and saying anything negative about the government, all that sort of stuff. And I mean, we joke about it, but what BJ's saying isn't untrue. It does. The purpose of censorship is to control, is to manipulate, is to keep a populace or a group, a body, a community, an organization of people doing the activities you want them to do, or having them not do the activities you don't want them to do. And so it's a slippery slope. I'm not a huge political person. I'll be honest. I'll be really, this might surprise a lot of you people. I've never watched one episode of Tucker Carlson. I don't really know much. I know who he is. I know a lot of other people like him. I know he used to be on Fox News. And
last week, TJ didn't know who Don Lemon was.
Yeah, I had no idea who Don Lemon was. So when all that stuff
was,
I was like, Who's Don Lemon? You know, so
It's
like
a
a lot of these
walking
big
pun.
mainstream news people, mainstream media people, I don't know who.
Wait,
any
was
of
he
them
in
are.
Grumpy Old Men?
I wish.
Anyway,
Who knows?
Somebody
he
gets
was
that
a news
reference.
guy.
He's probably been in a couple. Let's just
Tucker
say that.
Carlson's a news guy. I do know he's covered some. I did think he was interesting. There was a couple times that like we would cover something on Blockchain Basement, like with the aircraft stuff, and then like, oh hey, they did. Tucker actually covered it the next day. I was like, wow, I'm kind of impressed. You know, like mainstream media is covering some of the same kind of stuff that we're covering. And caught like he even called the tie-in connection of the U.S. government potentially selling some Bitcoin when we saw a lot of those ATM systems were getting hacked. You know, and they might have had to pay off a ransom or something. It's like that. I mean, it's a pretty big reach. Not surprised that I would make it, but to see somebody like him put that together was pretty cool. Obviously, he got let go of Fox recently. Just announced, was it yesterday or maybe it was Monday,
last
that
night.
he's going to be joining Twitter full time. And it's really interesting to me to see where Twitter takes this. You know, from they said they want to do more with content creators and to be more of a media platform. I think Elon Musk sees what it can be as a media source, especially for independent journalism and independent media.
Sorry, I got fat fingers right
Yeah,
now.
it's all right. BJ, it's all right. It's first day back. You know, everybody knows you were just sleeping for
those
a week. So
Owen's sitting
it's
there with
Owen's
pants
fault.
on his
Owen's
neck.
fault.
Owen, what are you wearing right now? Are there
He's
pants
wearing
on your?
Don't worry.
Twitch
At least
pillow.
at least he's not sniffing the pillow. Okay. Last time they was in here sniffing the pillow, and everyone in chat was like, "What is he
Owen has
doing?"
pants on his
There you
neck.
go. Oh, don't do that shit. Oh,
Are we
God. Now
back
it
to
looks
kink
really
shaming
bad.
already?
Looks like he's going under the pillow. All right, so we're gonna watch this video real quick.
we go.
Tucker announcing his join to Twitter, and let us know in the chat what you think. Good, bad, you like it, you don't like it. Yeah, we'll go from there. Should I maximize this?
He looks so
Holy
old.
aspect ratio, Batman.
Yeah, I was gonna say how should I
I'll
just
do
play
it.
it.
Just
All
do
right.
it there. Yeah.
Let's figure it out.
do it? Leave it small, leave it big.
Let it ride.
All right, here we go.
You often hear people say the news is full of lies, but most of the time that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated.
Facts.
How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year. What's it like to work in a system like that? After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess, it's guaranteed. Every person who works in English language media understands that. The rule of what you can't say defines everything. It's filthy, really, and it's utterly corrupting. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy. That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets. You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
So I saw that, got me pretty excited, fired up about just generally. Obviously, we believe in a lot of this stuff here as, trying to get the message out there that we feel is people need to be talking about. Like he said, speaking the truth, speaking our minds, feeling like we don't have to be afraid of being censored. We deal with a lot of this on YouTube in general, even without any authority over us saying what we can and can't say. We still have YouTube, the arbiters. And I don't know like how many of you guys have experienced this personally, but it is a very real thing that he's talking about, as far as it doesn't matter how high up you are in media, you still, have to, how much leverage you have as talent, as a name, as an anchor, as, influence, as a successful show, as money to the business, as the network, you still are responsible to the network. I don't know if you guys, Nick, I'm sure you've experienced it in media, that sort of stuff, but there's a show, Secession. I love it. It's a really good show. And the guy there's a couple scenes in there. I don't know what season or whatever it is, but they own a media company. They own they own a news network. And there's a character in there, and he's probably supposed to represent a Tucker-ish type person, where he tells him like. He more or less tells him like I want you to do a hit piece on the president because of this stuff that's going on. The owner of the entire business is having drama between him and the president, him and the Department of Justice. He's trying to get leverage on the president of the United States. So he's saying, I want you to basically start turning the public sentiment against the president, and you don't really have a choice. And we're telling you have to do this. And I know you don't like being told. I know in your contract it says you have editorial control, but you don't. You're going to do it the way we want it to be done. Now, obviously, this is it's a fictional movie or a fictional show that this is happening in, but it is representative of what happens in real life. Like there are certain just ask Kanye if there's any talking points that are non-issues, and he'll give you a whole list of them because he knows exactly and he tends to talk about the things you're not supposed to talk about, and it doesn't matter how high up you are, what level of influence you have, they keep that kind of stuff in line. So I'm very fascinated to see what's going to happen on Twitter. Elon Musk has been pushing a get back against this envelope for a while. I mean, you can even see how much resistance he got, even with all the influence he had, about being able to make Twitter a place where people are able to speak their mind. You can see how fearful the establishment is of freedom of speech, of freedom of thought, of shared, honest discourse happening on a platform, because they know a lot of the stuff that they're doing is pretty shady. And if everybody's able to question it and discuss it and, create new ideas, it can be very dangerous for the ideas that they're trying to push. So I think this is a very positive thing. It's positive for Twitter. I think it's positive for free speech. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm not saying it's a guarantee slam dunk that this will play out. And, he may not actually say anything very interesting. I'm not sure. I don't know. What do you think, Nick? You're a media guy. You've kind of experienced the media machine, Hollywood a little bit. Like, do you think Twitter can be what people are hoping it is, or do you think it's and what do you, you like Tucker, right? You're a fan of his work.
I'm a fan of Tucker. Yeah, I like.
We're
Tucker.
going noir with this.
Going noir.
Oh, I like it. Look at that. Well, dang. Look, PJ's been real busy over there.
Wow. Well, back in my day. Now I do have stories. I do have a lot of dark stories about just the overt type of suppression of speech and suppression of ideas and suppression of people's even religions that happen in Hollywood consistently, day in and day out. There are boxes that need to be checked in scripts, and if you're not dumping on you're not dumping on the enemies, and you're not uplifting the verified class that needs to be uplifted, then you don't get your stuff made. So that is open. Hollywood is, besides sexual abuse, is just one giant walking discrimination unit. Like, there is no equal opportunity employment opportunities in Hollywood. It is all discriminatory, and it all comes down to sexual orientation and race and your religion. All those three that you're
you're supposed to not do.
Yeah. All of those are what they discriminate against when they hire people. Okay. And I'm not just saying this as a, filthy cisgender white guy conservative. I'm saying this as I've seen it from other people, and there's becoming a backlash. I'm actually writing a blog piece right now about how the Cleopatra movie has broken woke Hollywood, because we can get into that later. But I think Tucker is what Twitter needs to stay relevant and stay on task, which Elon says, look, I made this app. This app isn't here to make money. This app is here to make sure the truth gets out. So it's a noble cause. I still don't trust Elon Musk. He's still trying to make it into WeChat, but I think for right now, a guy like Tucker, and hopefully he'll get partnered up with Project Veritas, or not Project Veritas. What's his face?
Daily Wire?
James O'Keefe.
Formerly Project Veritas.
Formerly, yeah. Screw Project Veritas. They suck.
Oh, right. Like all that drama.
James O'Keefe. Yeah. Those two guys, that would be a great pair.
Well, and that was kind of my question too. So, I mean, I see a lot of interesting comments. I mean, a lot of people saying it wasn't always this way, which is true. Twitter did used to be part of the propaganda machine itself. I do think it's very interesting and noble that Elon, even after acquiring it, exposed a lot of the stuff that's been going on there with the Twitter files. But it's a lot of interesting comments too about is it the right choice for him? He's going to fail. He'll flop. A lot of people saying he's going to disappear. Some people saying he's going to really push the envelope with what he talks about now, being Tucker on Twitter. But that was what I was going to ask. Do we feel like was this the best place? Like, if you are a big media personality on mainstream media and you're trying to leave the mainstream and go do news somewhere else, is, like, in your mind, does Twitter make the most sense, or would there, is there another place you could go?
It seems like it would be the only place. You're not going to go to BitChute,
right?
I mean, Rumble maybe. I think Rumble has a hard road ahead of itself. But right now, if you want breaking news, you go to Twitter. Like, that's where you go. And there are politicians now that are opening up spaces and doing town halls on Twitter Spaces. And I can tell you right now, like, the deep state does not want that.
Right.
Okay. The RNC and the DNC do not want their people going out. Yeah. The Uniparty does not want the representatives actually talking to the people. Right. They don't want that. They're afraid of that.
They're trying to control the conversation.
Yeah. And I think if Elon and the team can actually get freaking Spaces to work consistently, it will take over as the number one radio state, what we would think of as radio. It would take that over by a mile. Podcasting would be in the rearview mirror, and they would all be on Spaces. That's what you would talk about. And whether pre-recorded or not, I could see how that would quickly assert itself in the mediascape.
Well, it seems like Musk, at least today, is being presented, or is presenting himself as the free speech absolutist that Jack Dorsey said he was back when he owned Twitter. And then Twitter originally was very different. And then in what they allowed, and then in 2016, I think collectively, if you want to add whatever euphemism you can, but I think the good shorthand is our rulers lost their minds, and they apparently had lost control of the narrative. They thought this was just a sandbox, and then things changed appreciably. Then it's really interesting to see the 180 that different people have done on Musk. I look on YouTube, just something I followed for a long time is This Week in Tech, Leo Laporte and all them. It's all tech side.
Remember the screensavers?
Loved screensavers.
I grew up on that
Tech
show,
TV.
Dude.
Tech TV rocked.
Tech TV,
it was
RIP,
incredible.
man.
It framed everything.
You guys have more in common than your shirts.
But
the Blues Brothers.
They're someone said Blue Oyster Brothers, which is
I love
Blue Oyster Cult.
That was good. That was really good. But they have recently been pushing like mad Mastodon and Blue Sky, and all of a sudden, Musk is almost Orange Man. And it was 6 months ago, a couple of years ago, he was your absolute hero. Everything was going to be green. He's taking us to the moon and Mars, and this is the greatest thing ever. Never mind all the cobalt and lithium slave labor mining and things. But that stuff, yeah, sure. Just what's
throwing out all the human rights stuff
first, but it's going to be a greener future, and all the slave labor. But
as long as brown people keep on digging the earth for us,
absolutely, my Tesla's going to be fantastic. And just that juxtaposition, I'm curious. I think it'll be potentially so much bigger than what a lot of people anticipate. That when do they get parlored?
Well, that's what's interesting in the way that because it's so wholly owned, and Elon Musk and Tesla, has a lot of leverage and reach and servers and satellites, and they've got a decent, obviously, relationship with Amazon. It's much harder for them to parlor Twitter than it is something that's just starting.
I mean, well, it seems they trial ran it with InfoWars, and all of a sudden, within one day, with no collaboration, AWS, Azure, Play Store, Google Play, the App Store, it was gone. And then 6 months later, 8 months later, Parler, same thing. AWS said, nope, you don't get to use our servers anymore. There's no notice. You're off the App Store. You're off of Google Play. And they were building momentum. to actually be a viable alternative. Very small at the time.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a lot easier to derail a new upstart that's just getting some momentum than like Twitter. They've had relationships for years and years and years. It would. Not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it would take a lot more. It would take a much bigger political hit, and
you would think. But these are the same people that deplatformed a sitting president.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it.
All of a sudden, there was nowhere for him to talk.
Yeah,
and wow, a sitting president.
Yeah, I'm not saying, like I said, the power reach is very, very deep, and that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. Like I said, it would have been interesting to see if they could have stopped him from buying Twitter altogether, which they almost did.
They tried.
So as all this rolls out, it's going to be fascinating. Nick, you brought up a good point with him saying, like it might seem great at first, we're getting news, we're getting content, everything's Twitter, and then it, like you said, the ultimate plan is to turn it into a WeChat like application. So if we do start relying on it for all of our information and to make payments and to like it becomes our new everything, communication, scheduling, then they really, they play the long game. They still have the control that they're looking for. So, nobody is the good guy. This is why you have to protect yourself. This is why self-sovereignty is always the right answer.
Yep. Expect self-rescue.
Exactly. Expect self-rescue. Is that what you said? Yeah, exactly. That's really good. And, so as we move forward, obviously it matters. You guys brought up a lot of good points when it comes to talk radio. Somebody in the chat said, AM radio is going away, so that's going to free up a lot of talk stuff. You mentioned, taking over that talking space, podcast going away, but I'm torn because of Sirius XM radio has been around forever, satellite radio, and it's got a user base. There's definitely some people that subscribe to it. It's a viable business. There's probably got a decent amount of listeners, but it's never really hit its scale for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's because it's the medium of most people only listen to it in their car. It's not on your phone. I mean, I'm sure that it is on your phone. I just don't know a lot of people. I don't know a lot of people that use it that way.
With Howard Stern.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was when they were really making it, when Howard Stern was big and they signed him and he brought everybody over there. And that was kind of the beginning of Sirius. And then it just, it's going down ever since.
Satellite radio came out, I think, maybe at the same time or even right before 3G. And then we got 3G, 4G, 5G, where people are like, why would I have this?
Why do I need a satellite when I can do it over the internet now?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, but that's what's so interesting is, I'll be interested to see if this ever, the way you were talking about spaces, if that ever actually materializes. Do they ever take off to where everybody's tuning into all these spaces all the time? And, obviously Twitter's got a pretty good platform, and we'll see. It is interesting because it's a passive consuming type of medium. You don't have to be looking at it, engaging with it like you do with YouTube. You could be cleaning your house and it's going in the background like that's part of why people like podcasts. It's an audio medium, but I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. It'll be really interesting when we're seeing mainstream news people jumping over how many, how is he going to do a show? I guess he had like a nighttime, you do it like every night at 7 o'clock, kind of like a prime time kind of show.
Yeah.
Is he going to do the same thing? Is it going to look different? Is the news going to get better? Is it going to, is the quality going to go down? Like that's what somebody said. Oh, he's going to fail trying to make his own content. And it's like, he's not going to be doing it by himself. I'm sure he's got a team and research.
He had a team to do that video.
Right.
The audio in that video was great. I mean, where was he? The Dutton Ranch? Seriously, he knows what the hell he's doing. He's been in media for 30 years. So he's going to crush it. And just go real quick point about Twitter and Spaces. Like Spaces is beautiful because it's all encompassing because you can record Spaces and there's already people who are doing high end Twitter Spaces with sound effects, with transitions, and they have different guests come up and they have different voices and things like that. So it's the best of both worlds with radio and podcasting are Twitter Spaces.
It is.
And I can see them having in the future, a Spaces only profile to where you just see the episodes, but you're able to quickly reference everyone's resources on Twitter and you can throw them into the show. Like you put it up on the board there in your Twitter space. You're like, if you look up in I think this is kind of called the board. I think it's called the countertop or something like that. But you can see all the threads that they're talking about. And while they're all talking, you can scan through the documents that they're referring to. It's incredibly powerful, leaps and bounds more powerful than dumb Apple podcasts. So I'm just very bullish on the whole medium itself.
It's a really rich discourse.
It is. It's good. And that's what's going to make the next, it's really the next couple of years, whether you're talking crypto, whether you're talking macroeconomics, whether you're talking politics, like really, AI, tech, all of this stuff, everything we're experiencing right now over the next few years, watching it roll out, watching it interact with each other. It's a lot of fun. You know, it's a lot of unknowns, so it can be a lot of scary to a lot of people. But realistically, like being here, being part of the conversation, having a chance to impact it and change it and affect it for your own future. That's what's exciting. That's what we enjoy doing every single day. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this. We're going to be watching this as things develop, and we're going to be doing our part in pushing the conversation forward. Whether that's on Twitter, whether that's on YouTube, you know, whether we're just sharing stupid pictures on Instagram or other places. You know, we're going to be here hanging out with you guys. We're sorry we missed you yesterday. I did see a lot of your comments saying you missed hanging out with your crypto crew. We do always love hanging out with the basement with you guys. Big shout out to Ray. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me again, everybody.
And of course, shout out to all of you guys in the chat. We love you. Jen Jones, Mama Crypto, OUG Man, XRP82, Urkelson, Jen Jones 32, Poohin 78 Div, Mr. T, Dago, Shake and Bake, Bob from Accounting, R.A. Daniel, Gary Austin, Michael Moore, Jovan Harrison, Coins Chick. We got Razmatab, Poohin 78 Dig, Sofa King Corny, Fluffy the Sheep, Crimson Caravan Company, Mr. T. We love all of you guys. Stack some Bitcoin. We do have Bitcoin all the way back up to 27.5 right now, so pretty good bounce off of that. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. We'll be back with the Nictator. So see you at the top. Buckle up.